Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to look a little bit closer at some of the other characteristics of quarter hour time. Okay, so just a reminder that when we're talking about quarter time, it's really important that we understand what a quarter is. So when we're looking at a clock, a quarter is this much of the clock. So those points would be the 3, the 6, the 9 and the 12. Remembering that when it's quarter to something, we're talking about the 9. When it's quarter past something, we're talking about the minute hand being on the 3. And here's another thing just to help you out with that. When the minute hand is on this side of the clock, it's talking about how many minutes passed. And when it's on this clock, we start talking about, well, how many minutes are there to get to the next hour, to the next o'clock time. Okay, let's look at the time on this analog clock here. So remember, the first thing we do is look at the minute hand. The minute hand is pointing to the 3. We can see that means that minute hand has travelled a quarter of the way around the clock. Remember, when we're talking about this half of the clock, we're talking about how many minutes have passed. Okay, so this is showing a quarter past something. Now that we know that, we look at where the minute hand is. Remember, that's the shorthand. We're talking about past, so what has that minute hand just travelled past? That's right, it's travelled past the 1. So that would be written as quarter past 1. Now, a new thing I'm going to teach you here is this. From here to here is 15 minutes. So we need to know that to be able to read a digital clock. Because remember that we write on a digital clock, we write the hour here and we write the minutes on this side here. So what hour has it just gone past? 1. How many minutes past 1 is it? Remember, it's gone a quarter and we know that a quarter is 15 minutes. So it's gone 15 minutes past the 1. This can also be said as 15 minutes past 1. Okay, let's try that again with a different clock. Let's take a look at this clock now. Again, remember, we always start looking at the minute hand first. The minute hand we can see is pointing to the 3. We already know that that means it's quarter past something because the minute hand has travelled a quarter of the way around the clock. Okay, now we look at the hour hand. So it's quarter past. What has the hour hand just gone past? The 6. So this one is quarter past 6. So you might see it written like that with words. Now let's think about how this might be displayed on a digital clock. Remembering that we write the hour on this side and the minutes on this side. Remember, we've just started talking about how when it's quarter past, the minute hand has travelled 15 minutes around the clock. Okay, so we know that in the minutes section, we write 15. In the hours part, we look at where the hour hand has just passed, and it's just gone past the 6. So this is quarter past 6, or sometimes you might hear people say 15 minutes past 6. Okay, let's look at this clock now. Let's remember, when we're telling the time, we start on the minute hand, so the long hand. You can see that it's pointing to the 9. Okay, when it's on this half of the clock, remember we're talking about how many minutes to the next hour. So we're looking at, it's 1/4 of the clock, so quarter to the next hour. We know that it's 1/4 now. Let's look at where that hour hand is. You can see the hour hand here is between the 11 and the 12. It's getting very close to the 12. So now, because we're on how many minutes to, we talk about what number is it approaching. And it's coming up to the 12. So this is actually telling the time of 11:45. Let's talk about the digital clock now. When we get to the 9, the minute hand has actually travelled 45 minutes around the clock. So it's 45 minutes past something. Okay, and then it's 45 minutes past 11, so 11 goes here. Remember, this is where the hour hand is, and this is where the minute hand is. So this will also be seen as 45 minutes past 11. Let's have a go at another one. Here's our clock here that we're looking at. Remember, we start on the minute hand first. So we can see that minute hand is pointing to the 9 again. We're looking at this side of the clock, so we're talking about how many minutes to. And we know that that's 1/4, so it's got 1/4 of the way to go until it's the next o'clock time. So it's 1/4 to something. Now that we know that, we can look at the minute hand. It's pointing to the 7, just before the 7. So we know that it's 1/4 to 7, which would be written like this. Okay, now let's think about the digital clock. Remember how I just explained that the minute hand has travelled 45 minutes around the clock, so we know that it's going to be 45 minutes past something. So now, what has it gone past? It hasn't gone past the 7, because it's in between the 6 and the 7. It's actually gone past the 6. So that's how it would look on a digital clock. Now the reason it's 45, because each of these is 5. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. So that's how we get the 45 minutes. Okay, so some people might say 1/4 to 7 or 45 minutes past 6. Okay, here we have a mixture of times, of o'clock times, half past times, 1/4 to, and 1/4 past times. So now let's review all the things that you know about the clock so far. Okay, let's start looking at the analog clocks here, and then let's match them to the words. Okay, let's have a look at the first one here. You can see the long minute hand is pointing to the 12. So that means it's an o'clock time. Okay, now we look to the short hour hand, and it's on the 1. So we know that that is showing 1 o'clock. Now look to the words and see if you can find the one that says 1 o'clock. That's it all the way down here. Okay, let's take a look at the next clock here. First, we look at the minute hand. It's pointing to the 3. When the minute hand is on the 3, it's 1/4 past something. Okay, now we know it's 1/4 past. Let's look at the hour hand. Where is it sitting? It has just gone past the 12. So we know that that clock is saying 1/4 past 12. All right, let's take a look at the next clock down. Again, we start at the minute hand. The long minute hand is on the 3. What do we know about that? That means it's 1/4 past time. So now we can look at the hour hand. What has it just gone past? The 10. So it's 1/4 past 10. We find the words to match. 1/4 past 10. Okay, next clock down. We can see that the long minute hand is pointing to the 6. So that means it's travelled halfway around the clock. So this one is 1/2 past time. Now we look at where has the hand gone past. It has gone past the 6. So this one is showing 1/2 past 6. Let's see if we can find the words. 1/2 past 6. Well done. Last clock here. We look at the minute hand first. The long minute hand is pointing to the 9. So we know that it's got 1/4 of the way to go to get to the next hour. So that means it's 1/4 to something. Now we can look at the short hour hand. What is it almost on? The 9. That's right. So we know that it's 1/4 to 9 o'clock. So if we look for the words, 1/4 to 9. Okay, let's see now if we can match these to the digital clocks. All right, o'clock. Can you remember what 2 numbers we would see in the minute part for o'clock? You're right. it would be 00. And we know that it's 1 o'clock, so we can look for the number 1 as well. So that means it's this one here. All right, what about half past? Can you remember what we would see in the minute section for half past? Okay, if we can't, let's look at the other key number here, 6. Okay, can we see any ones here that have 6 on them? This one here. Yep, so when it's halfway past, remember that means 30 minutes has passed. So 6:30 looks like this, 6:30 on the clock. All right, let's have a look at this one. Whoops. This one here. Okay, so remember we said this one was 10:15. So if we wanted to find that on the digital clock, we would first of all look for the number 10. Okay, that's it here. Then remember when we talk about it's gone a quarter of a way around the clock, that means 5, 10, 15 minutes have passed. So 15 would be on this side. So it's 10:15 or 10:15. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. So this one here, we've got 12:15. Okay, so we're looking for one that has a 12 in the hour spot. And then we're talking about 15:15, so we know that that's 15 minutes. So a 12 in the hour spot and 15 in the minute spot. So that must be the matching digital clock, which means that this one here, 8:45, matches 8:45. Okay, well done, guys. Now, head back over to the wiki, check out what your practice tasks are, and become an expert in the characteristics of 2:45 and 2:15 times.